Good morning from Boston, and good afternoon to everybody in Bahrain, and welcome to Volume 2 of a 5-volume series of the Women2Women Bahrain Virtual Learning Experience. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rick Rendon. I'm the founder of Empower Peace and Women2Women, and we're proud to be working with the Bahraini Ministry of Youth and Sport and the U.S. Embassy in Bahrain to bring you this series of educational programming. But what I'd like to do now is, last week we had a very interesting experience hearing from women leaders. This week we're going to learn about the leadership in all of you, but I'd like to basically bring the class of 2020 to the screen. So I'm going to count down to 3. What I'd like to do is ask everybody that's viewing to make sure you're in speaker view, actually in gallery view. So if everybody can go to gallery view, that would be great. I want to bring everybody up on screen that feels comfortable being on video, and then I'm going to count down to 3, from 3 to 1, and I'd like to have us give us a virtual round of applause as we're proud to introduce the Women2Women Bahrain Virtual Learning Experience, class of 2020. So unmute yourselves, everybody. Let's just take a second here to unmute ourselves. And again, if you're comfortable, please put your image up on the screen because we would like to meet you. You all have a chance to see us. We're far more interested in seeing you. All right, everybody's coming online. Hello, everybody. It's great to see you all. Thank you so much for being part of this program. Okay, I'm going to count down from 3 to 1, and then I want everybody to let out a big cheer. We congratulate all of you for being part of this virtual learning experience. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes. 3, 2, 1. Hey, come on. Don't be shy. Let it out. All right, that's great. Welcome, class of 2020. Now it's my honor and privilege to turn it over to, why don't we go back to speaker view, press on speaker view. You can mute yourselves if you'd like. Now it's my honor and privilege to introduce you to the Executive Director of the Women2Women Empower Peace Program. Please welcome Tricia Reynard.
Hey everybody, this is so exciting. I love seeing your faces. So good to virtually meet you this time around. So it is really a treat today to introduce our next speaker. And before we get started, we talk a lot about leadership and what does that mean? Just got muted. Leaders do not come in a one-size-fits-all. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. You don't have to be the person with the greatest grades, but you do have some things that you do need. You need to know how to listen. You need to know where your strengths are. So today we have Mason West, who is one of our most notable and favorite speakers from Women2Women, who's going to walk you through what does a leader look like? What does a leader in you mean? So it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Rabin Gap Nakuchi School in Georgia, Mr. Mason West. Welcome, Mason.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you. It is so good to see everyone. I'm so happy to be here and to meet all of you. And is that my cue to begin, Tricia? I guess so. All right. So before we begin, I just want to ask you to do a couple things for me. While we are going through this process, you may have some questions. If you do have a question, just in the chat area of Zoom, let Tricia know that you have a question. And when we come to question time, you'll be able to ask that. So as we go through this program, I'm going to come to a couple of stopping points because I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things. And during those times, while we are engaging in those activities, you can also ask questions. There are also going to be some moments that might be a little awkward because it's silent. And that's because I'm giving you an opportunity to think about something and then engage in an activity. So the first thing that I want you to realize in leadership or in life is that you determine your own destiny. So many of us spend so much of our lives moving through life doing what other people tell us to do, describing ourselves the way other people tell us to describe ourselves, learning what other people tell us to learn, and trying to achieve success the way other people define success. So what I would like to do today is encourage you to flip that script. And what I mean by that is you are not going to allow other people to determine what you can do and where you can go in life. You are going to take control of that yourself. You are going to write your own script. Now, in order to do this, there's a certain mindset that you have to have. There was a researcher who did a study, and based on that research, what she determined is that there are two types of mindsets. There's what you call a fixed mindset, and then there's what you call a growth mindset. A person with a fixed mindset is someone, as you can see in this graphic, who has allowed themselves to be labeled in certain areas. And they really judge their lives on what they can do in the moment. Or they judge everything they do as a success or as a failure. So many times, someone who has a fixed mindset does not like to do things that are beyond a label that's been given to them. How many of you have been told that you are a good student, or that you are good in math, or you are good in science? Sometimes those are called, those are labels that people place on us. And we try everything we do to live up to that label, not realizing that we can go beyond that label. So the person who came up with this idea of the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, she did kind of a study. Her name is Carol Dweck. She did a study where she took some children and she told all of the children, I'm going to give you a test. And she split the students into two groups. And when they took the test, when one group came back, she told them, you did well on the test. You are smart. The second group she brought in, she said, you did well on the test. You worked hard. So then she brought all of the kids back and she told them, okay, I'm going to give you a much harder test. How many of you want to take that test? And all of the students who were told you did good on the first test, you are smart, they decided they did not want to take the much harder test. But the students whom she said, whom she told, you did really good on the first test, you worked hard, they all decided that they would take the second much harder test. The reason why? The ones who were told they were smart did not want to risk losing that label of being smart. So they decided not to take the much harder test. But the ones who were told you did well on the test, you worked hard, they just thought to themselves, all I have to do is work harder. They felt they had more in their control. They had a growth mindset. What I'm going to challenge you to do today is have a growth mindset. And to have a growth mindset, it kind of means you have to get rid of some labels. And so I want you to think about the idea, if I have no labels, I have no limits. So if you have defined yourself by the grades you get in school, if you've defined yourself by how well you do at a certain job, if you define yourself by what other people have said about you, what I want you to be careful of, even if those things are positive, what I want you to be careful of is I don't want to live up to those labels. I can live beyond those labels. Because if I am not confined by a label, then I won't have any limits. I can do whatever I set my mind to do. So many of us go by labels that are placed on us. Whether it be our history, whether it be our nationality, whether they are gender rules and gender roles. Many of us live by labels that we didn't put on ourselves. And what I want you to do is I just want you to take a chance, and I want you to imagine there are no labels, that I can live beyond what anybody said about me. So in a minute, I'm going to allow you to ask questions if anybody has any questions, but I'm going to give you kind of an assignment before we do that. We're going to practice living without labels. What I want you to think, you should see on your screen a circle that says talent. And what I want you to do is I want you to think of one talent that you have, only one. Now, there's a difference between a talent and a skill. A talent is something that comes naturally to you. It's in your DNA. It was kind of shaped by your environment. It's not something that you necessarily learn, but it's something that naturally comes to you. A skill is something that you learn. So if I ask somebody, what is a talent of yours? And they say, my talent is football, or in America we call it soccer. My talent is soccer. Well, soccer is not a talent because you have to learn rules. You have to learn the parameters of the game. Soccer is a skill. And if you define your talent with a skill, you can limit yourself. Someone who can play soccer well might be able to play basketball well. They might be able to swim well. They might be able to run well. Why? Because their talent is not soccer. Their talent is athleticism. Okay, so as you think of this talent, a talent is more of a quality. It might be athleticism. It might be humor. It might be that you are analytical. It might be that you are empathetic. Okay, a big difference between a talent and a skill. So humor would be a talent. Telling a joke would be a skill. I want you to think of one thing that comes to your mind that you are good at. It comes naturally to you. And if you are having difficulty doing that, I want you to look at this chart, and I want you to think of 4 different areas of your life that are totally different. Imagine yourself sitting down and eating a meal with your family. Then imagine yourself in class at school. Then imagine yourself out having fun with friends. Then imagine yourself somewhere else, maybe at a picnic or at a religious service. 4 totally different things. And then ask yourself, what is the same about me in each of those situations? Am I the talkative one in each of those situations? Am I the humorous one in each of those situations? Am I the insightful one, the wise one in each of those situations? What's the same about me in 4 different situations? That thing that's probably the same about you in each situation, that quality is probably your talent. So this is what we're going to do right now. I am going to be quiet and let you think of what that one talent might be. And what I want you to do is, if any of you have any questions right now, Trisha is going to facilitate or is going to ask those questions for you, or call on you to ask the question yourself. And then I will do my best to answer. And then after that, what we are going to do is I'm going to ask people to volunteer and tell me the talent that they thought of. Okay, any questions? Oh, you'd have to unmute yourself. And some of you put in the chat, but I would actually like you to say it. You can unmute yourself and say it. And I hope I'm saying your name right. Fatima, I hope I'm saying your name right. My talent is being myself without caring about people's judgment about me. Okay. All right. Arwa, my talent is being empathetic and loving. So who actually wants to say this out loud? You can unmute yourself. All right. Who's that? Arwa, go ahead.
My talent is being empathetic, as in knowing what other people feel without them saying it out loud, and being loving to however they feel or however they act around people.
Excellent. Empathy. Who else?
I have a question.
Yes, is that Sarah?
Yes. I just wanted to ask, how would you know that your talent is being logical, not that you did well in a situation?
How would you know that your talent is logical? And then there was a second part you said.
Yeah, how do I know it's my talent rather than I did well in one situation only?
Excellent question. Excellent question. So, and I'll have to explain something before I can fully answer that. Many times you have to ask yourself, did I define myself as doing well in a certain situation because someone else said I did well? That's the first thing you have to ask yourself, because many times we are doing well in a lot of situations, but we don't realize it because we're waiting for someone else to validate us and tell us we did well. So when you say to yourself, I did well in a certain situation, is that because you know in your heart and in your spirit you did well? Or is that just because someone else said you did well? That's the first thing, I would ask. How do you know you did well? And then the second thing I would say, Sarah, is most times we don't look at other situations. We don't take time to self-reflect because we spend a lot of our time pleasing other people. People tell us, we should go to school, which I have no problem with school. They tell us what we should learn, what type of job we should get, what makes us a good person, what makes us a bad person. We are constantly listening to other people, and we don't realize that we are doing well in a lot of situations. We've just been listening to other people. So if you feel, okay, I believe my talent is logic, I believe my talent is being analytical, I would ask you to self-reflect and go deeper. There's probably there's probably many more situations that you did well in than you think. Any other questions or comments? Anybody else want to share their talent? You have to unmute yourself.
I have a question.
Okay. Is it Isra?
Yes.
Okay.
Is being free-spirited a talent? Like, I'm not afraid to stand by myself, have my own different opinion. Is that
Okay.
considered a talent? Or
Okay.
just, a personality trait?
Oh, so let's delve into that just a little deeper. It's really good when you think of something, a phrase, to define it, right? So define free-spirited.
I'm not afraid of sharing my own unique thoughts, even though they disagree with other people. In class, I'm not afraid to say my own opinion, even though people will come and attack me for it because they say it's wrong or different.
Okay. All right. So you unpacked a lot there. You said unique. You said you share. You said unafraid. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There is a lot in what you say is free spirit. Now, I do believe that being free spirited is a talent, but I think you might be able to delve a little deeper, because yes, being free spirited can also be a personality trait, but I also hear in there that you think differently and that you are creative and innovative, right? Or were you sharing those things? So when you think of someone like a Albert Einstein or Steve Jobs, all of these people who impacted the world because they were innovative. Now, they were also free-spirited. They didn't care what you thought or said about them, but down to their core, right? They thought of ideas that transformed the universe that no one else thought of. So I would just challenge you to dig a little deeper. I think free spirit is the fact that you're a courageous person. and that's a part of your personality. But I think far deeper than that, you shared some things that reveal creativity and innovation that may be at the heart of your talent, or may be your talent.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have time for one more question or comment.
I do have a question, sir.
Okay, is it Kins?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Can being an optimistic a talent?
Can being optimistic be a talent? Okay, so define optimistic for me.
It is being positive, thinking positively, and spreading positive vibes to everyone, and encouraging people to be the best they can, and to bring out the best of them, and to make them feel that there is someone beside them.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you one more question. So what is it that makes you positive in a situation? What is it that you see or you think that makes you positive in a situation?
Looking at life as a short thing that won't last for long, so we have to enjoy it anyway, and that the problem that we are facing now will not be existed after 2 years or 2 weeks from now. Thinking that everything will have a solution at the end is what makes me feel positive about the situation or the problem that I might face.
Okay, so what I heard you say is you mentioned 2 years down the road. You mentioned the situation not lasting. You used the word look a couple times, right? Now, I'm not saying that being optimistic is not your talent, but what I am saying is you seem to be saying that you see things in situations that other people don't see. That you see a solution, you also use that word, you see a solution or you see an outcome that other people don't see. It might be a little more than the fact that you are just positive. It might be that you are also insightful. You might be able to see the things in a situation that other people don't see because they don't pay attention to those things. Or maybe they just don't have the mindset where they can look through all the dark clouds of a situation and see that ray of hope or that gleam of light, right? And that's insight, right? So optimism may be more a part of your personality, and insightful, the ability to see what other people don't see in a situation, might be more your talent. I'm not saying it is, but if I were you, I'd just ask more questions about that.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Okay.
Hello, I have one small question.
Oh, okay.
How can you differentiate between your talent and something that's in your character? Like if I'm curious or I'm something, it means that it's in my character. I am this. So what, on what basis do we differentiate between talent and character?
Wow, that great question. Can you say your name for me?
Ragad. My name is Ragad.
Ragad. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that is just a great question. So when you talk about character, and I'm going to bring another word into this really quick, and that is personality. People tend to believe that personality is kind of a part of your psychological or biological structure. It's your temperament. It's how you respond to things. It's not something that you really can change, right? Talking about personality. Character is, your character is something that you can change. Say that again?
What I portray to other people is my character.
Yeah, your character is what you portray to other people, and it's something that you can change. At the heart of your character is your integrity, your belief system, the way you treat people. So I agree with you. It's a way you present yourself to others, and it's also a way, it's what guides you. That's what I was looking for. It's like the roadmap that guides your behavior. That's character, and you can change that. Talent is more of ability. Character is presentation. character is presentation, talent is ability. So my character can be that I am a kind person with integrity, right? But my ability or my natural ability, my talent might be that I am athletic. So I can be athletic with a great character, or I can be athletic with a horrible character. But character is more how I present myself, and talent is more ability. Am I clear?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Um,
So
can I
one
share
more
my
question
talent?
and then we'll move on. Who's
I
that?
have one more question. It's Deepti. Am
Dip-
I audible to you?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask that once you kind of find the ability in yourself, how can you build complete trust in yourself for that ability? Like, I will do it, and if I don't do it, that's okay. I can move forward, and I can do it better. But I just don't have to stop and quit. Just I can take a break, but not stop and quit.
That is an awesome question. And if you let me move on in the presentation, I'm going to answer that question. We're actually going to go through an exercise that will help you get through that. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So everyone, I appreciate what you put in the chats. So you have shared what your talents are and you shared them. So my talent is expression, right? So I have the ability to express ideas. I have the ability to express how I feel. I have the ability to communicate with people in different ways. That's my talent. And each of you have identified a talent. Now, what I want you to do is think of what talents, or not what talents, but what skills can be built off of your one talent that you name. So remember, a talent is a natural ability. So my natural ability, ever since I was young, is to express myself. Sometimes it would get me in trouble in school or get me in trouble in the neighborhood because I would express my ideas. And because I had not cultivated a proper way to do it or developed the character that would allow me to present myself well, sometimes my talent got me into a lot of trouble, right? But as I grew older, I began to really realize what my talent was and also how that talent could be optimized, how I could do the best with it. And that was through the development of certain skills. So listen closely because I don't want you to miss this, right? Remember, a talent is a basic ability that you have. You're just born with it. A skill is something that you learn to do, right? I call them marketable skills. You can learn to do it, you can get paid for it, you can get a job, it can become your profession. So all of the little circles you see around my talent or expression are things that I developed. They're skills that I developed, right? Because of expression, I've been a teacher, I've been a preacher, motivational speaker. I've written books, I've written articles, I've produced short films and music videos and all of these things because I took one talent and I was able to maximize that talent and learn different skills. So my next question to you is, I just want you to think of 4 or 5 skills that you can develop off that one talent you name. I'll use a couple of you as an example. So if I am empathetic, right, that's a talent. I might develop the skill of going to school and things like that and becoming a psychologist or becoming a sociologist or an anthropologist. I might become a teacher. I might become a political leader, right? There are so many things that I could become just off of empathy. There have been great songwriters who were great songwriters because they knew how to tap into people's feelings. So just off of being empathetic, there are a bunch of skills that I can develop. If I am insightful, right? How many skills can I develop off of that? I might know where to start certain businesses, invest in certain commodities or certain things in the world, all because I have insight, right? And I can see things that other people don't see. That's what the multi-billionaire Warren Buffett is known for, is being insightful. So I want you to think of that one talent that you named, and how many skills could you develop from that one talent? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you just a moment, and Dipti, don't worry, I'm going to answer your question in our next section. But what I want you to do right now is I want you to think of 4 or 5 skills you can develop off that one talent. Now, don't make the mistake of thinking that all of the skills have to be the same or very close to each other. They might be totally different skills. I'll give you an example. Was a professional basketball player. His name was Kobe Bryant. He played for the Los Angeles Lakers. He passed away in February. He was known for his athleticism, and people thought that his talent was just basketball, but he was really good in soccer, right? He was also good in basketball. He also won an Academy Award for a film that he produced. He started a production company. He started an athletic league, right? So people may have just put him in a box based on his one talent, but he took that one talent and did so many things with it that are totally different from each other. So don't put yourself in a box. Remember, no labels, no limits. Think of 4 skills that you can develop off that one talent. And we'll take a couple of minutes for anyone who wants to share. Yes, Arwa? You have to take yourself off mute.
Yeah. So I got marketing, leading, teaching, speaking, volunteering, and cooking.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Off of which talent?
Empathy.
Empathy. Cooking. Wow. I can't remember. There's Martha Stewart, and there's another one. The woman who was in World War, Julia Childs. Those are people you may want to research because it's their empathy, right? That made them such iconic people in the world of cooking, right? And design and things like that. Excellent, excellent. Can I get 2 more?
Hello.
Yes, Wafa, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
My talent would be I'm very creative and also confident.
Okay.
And at times I'm also humorous and emotional. So
Okay.
the skill based on these talent, I would say I could be a motivational speaker.
Excellent.
Or a social worker, a writer, or also an artist. Because I'm
Excellent.
creative.
That's excellent. I like how those things are different from each other. You didn't place yourself in a box. Neither of you did. Excellent. Can I get one more person?
Yeah.
Could I share mine?
My talent is being logical.
Uh-huh.
So that would give me scientist, engineer, problem solver, analyst, and leader.
Excellent. Excellent. Someone else was going to say something. I'll let that. Who was that?
It was me.
Oh, it's her. Okay.
Yeah. I really liked when you explained the talent of expression.
Mm-hmm.
So I compared myself and I thought of being a lawyer, a writer, a psychologist, a manager, and a public speaker.
Wow. Okay. All right. All right. Now watch this. Watch this. Because what happens to so many people is they do exactly what you did, what you all have just done, but as they get older, the more labels people place on them, right? They begin to think that there are some things I just can't accomplish. Maybe being a lawyer is too hard for me. Maybe being a filmmaker is too difficult for me, or being a writer. Why? Because we get so used to labels that we start to limit ourselves. Or what we do is we try something and we quote unquote fail, and then we think that's not for us. Okay. So what I want to do now is get you to get rid of that. Like Dipti was asking, to get over those hurdles. So the first thing that I want you to realize is that all of us see the world differently. We approach the world differently, okay? And there's a couple of things that you have to ask yourself, okay, to make sure that you don't allow labels to limit you. There are a couple things you have to ask yourself to make sure that you can get over obstacles or get through barriers, all right? Because we all see the world differently. These are three powerful questions. One, how do I learn? Number two, how do I think? And number three, how do I grow? What do I mean about how do I learn? I have to ask myself, how does my mind take in information? Because many of us take in information differently. For instance, some of us are visual learners. We like to see things. We like to see them in color. We like to see graphs. We like to see shapes. We have to see people do things in front of us. And that's the best way we learn. Some of us are what we call auditory learners. We have to hear things. We love lectures. We love for people to explain things to us. We love to see it written in a very structured paragraph. And if it's presented to us that way, we learn best. There are some of us that we are tactile learners, right? Or we're kinesthetic learners. Tactile meaning I have to break it apart and put it back together. Kinesthetic learners means I have to move with it, right? I have to, movement has to be involved in it. I have to be active with it. So sometimes you are sitting in a class and you are a visual learner, but you may have a teacher who likes to teach to auditory learners. And so you see other people doing well in that class and you say to yourself, you know what? I'm just not good in maths. I can't understand it. When that's not the case. What's happening most times, it's being taught to you in a way that does not suit your learning style. So oftentimes what you say to yourself is, this isn't good for me. Oh, I can't be a lawyer. This isn't good for me. Oh, I can't be an engineer. When that's not true. You just learn differently. So what you have to ask yourself, right? And I want you to write this down. You have to ask yourself, how do I learn the best? How do I take in information the best? And once you know that, when you walk into a classroom and you're not getting the information the way you want to get it, you could speak to your teacher and say, you know, I learned this way. Can you help me? And if that teacher says no, right, then you can find other sources, tutors or the internet or books or films. You will find a way to best learn in a way that suits you. But you have to first know, how do I learn? When you're not doing well at something, when you feel like you're failing, don't put a label on yourself. I'm not good at that. Nope. Ask yourself, how do I learn? Also ask yourself, how do you think? Because learning is taking in information, right? Your learning style, and then you use that, you apply what you know to certain activities. The application of knowledge to an activity is what we call intelligence, all right? That's what intelligence is, your ability to apply knowledge. Well, many of us apply knowledge in different ways. We don't all apply knowledge the same way. And a lot of times we think that if I can't do this like this person does it or like everyone else does it, then I'm not intelligent. That's not true. Not everybody has a great memory. Not everybody memorizes things. But usually in schools, that's the easiest person for a teacher to teach, is someone who can memorize. And usually the people who get the best grades are people who can memorize information, right? But a lot of times we miss out on the people who don't have great memories, but they're very creative, they're very innovative. They can break things apart and put them back together, right? They can use their humor to enlighten people. They can lead people, right? But you have to know how you apply knowledge. You may be someone who's has linguistic ability. You may have someone who knows people well, so you're charismatic. You might be someone who has self-discipline. You may be someone who can do things in nature very well. You might be someone who's very analytical. Those are all different intelligence types. So you have to ask yourself, number one, how do I learn? Number two, how do I think or apply information? And then here's the big one. How do I grow? Now, what do I mean by that? Some of us need different motivation or different activities to go from one level to another level. There is this phrase called cognitive dissonance that everyone goes through. What cognitive dissonance means is when you learn something new, you struggle with it because it changes you. Everybody does. And so that struggle you feel when you learn something new, that frustration you feel is your mind adjusting to the new knowledge. Well, some people know how they learn, some people know how they think, but they don't like that struggle of learning that new way of doing math. They don't like that struggle of learning that new history. They don't like that struggle of going out and learning that new activity. So when they go through that struggle, they give up. But what I'm asking you to do is find your way of getting over that obstacle. For some of us, we need a coach in our ear motivating us. For others, we need our favorite song. For other people, we need to get mad and then we need to go somewhere, we need to chill for a minute and pump ourselves up, right? But all of us have a way that we grow. So I don't want labels to limit you. I don't want you to give up. I don't want you to believe that there's something out there you cannot do. You've identified your talent. You've identified skills you can base, that you can build off of that talent, right? You've probably asked yourself, wait, how do I learn? Oh, this is how I learn. This is how I think. This is how I can push through and I can grow. If you can answer those three questions and stay committed, there's nothing you cannot achieve. Now, before we go on to our last session, which I'm gonna have you go through an exercise that will help you get over the obstacle, I just wanna take maybe 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes to see if anybody has any questions.
Hey.
Hey.
I have a question, or not a question, it's like a problem. When I tell the people about my skill, they laugh at me.
Okay.
My skill is like talking in different languages, and in the future, I want to be a translator. So they laugh at me.
Okay. It really doesn't matter why they laugh at you. But just to help get through this process, has anybody ever told you why they laugh at you when you tell them this?
Yeah, because they say because it's no future to this talent or maybe a skill.
Okay, so you've already proved them wrong. I'm gonna say this one more time. You've already proved them wrong. Let me tell you why you've already proved them wrong, right? You're on a virtual learning session with Empower Peace, founded by Rick Rendon, managed by Trisha Reynard and their team. They do this all over the world. And when they do this all over the world, oftentimes they need translators. So I've been in Belgium with Empower Peace. I've been in Egypt with Empower Peace. And in both of those situations, guess what they had to hire? They had to hire translators. So all of those people that laughed at you, you've already proved them wrong because you've just made a connection with someone who does women-to-women conferences all over the world. And one day he'll probably be calling you up saying, hey, we need a translator. That's number one. Number two, people often laugh at what they don't understand or what they are not brave enough to do themselves. And I need you to remember that as you move forward. people often laugh at what they don't understand or what they're afraid to do themselves. And that's why I said why they laugh doesn't really matter. What you have to do is ask yourself, how can I learn to be the best translator? How can I apply that knowledge? And how can I push through and grow? And this is one of those situations where you are pushing through and growing. And you may not have realized you already took the first step just by participating in this event.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes.
We have time for one more question before we do the last section. Anybody else?
Good afternoon. Yeah, I have only one question.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask, can you be a different type of learner according to the context that you're learning?
That is such an awesome question. Yes. So I cannot remember the name of the person who did this research, but oh, help me to remember. I believe they wrote a book called Grit, G-R-I-T, Grit. And what they did some research where they proved, right, that whatever you need to do to survive or become great, you can train your brain to do that. So if you really, really want to become a visual learner, you can train your mind to do that. If you want to become an auditory learner, you can train your brain to do that. Your brain is so powerful that by just the magnitude of your belief in your effort, you can get yourself to do things that you were not able to do when you first started. So yes, I do believe that in different contexts, you can change the way you learn. What you have to do is get through that growth part. Because if you do something that you're not accustomed to doing, it's not your preference, it's gonna be harder. If you're used to being an auditory learner and all of a sudden you wanna become a visual learner, right? It may be difficult and you have to push yourself through. So when I said the scientist Albert Einstein, he liked to dream, he hated to do physical experiments. He didn't like to go in a lab and do experiments. He liked to do experiments in his head. So he would just sit there and dream about riding on a beam of light. And then that would cause him to ask questions. And then he would have to go to his wife at the time to get her to do the math. So she would verify everything he did in math, right? And then it was years later that people would prove his experiments in the lab, right? Because that's not something he wanted to do. But eventually he had to learn to do it. Eventually he had to get the math down. Eventually he had to do things differently because of the space he was in. That's an example of someone who had a preference one way, but based on a different situation, they had to learn something different and they were able to do so. Okay? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that was really interesting. Thank you. It's encouraging to know that you can do better and you can learn different ways if you want to.
That's right. That's the big thing. If you want to, it's all about your will. It's all about your will, what you want to do. All right. So I'm going to take you guys to, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I really wanted to ask this actually. I don't believe that any talent or any skill can go waste. It's just gonna help you at some point in life to grow. So I have a talent, I guess. I assume that's a talent, I hope, but not a personality trait, of being sensitive, being emotional and empathetic. But I don't know, at times I kind of feel that being a little too much of it kind of hinders my growth process and my thinking process, or at least being too emotional or being too sensitive. Yes, too much of everything is not good, but sometimes I think that it's good to be emotional and sensitive, and just that the people around me are saying that that's going to hinder your growth. So I'm just kind of confused. Being empathetic and being sensitive to people and things, does it really hinder your growth?
Okay, so here's my question for you. What do you mean about being too emotional?
Being too emotional, as in, um, well, I used to take a lot of things to heart, but now I kind of like know what to take and what not to take to heart. But um, it's just that feeling a lot with people, like just, I don't know how do I phrase it properly, but um, just empathizing with people's emotions.
All right, so let me ask you this. Let me ask it a different way. Did you tell yourself you were too emotional in these situations, or did someone else?
Someone else told me.
Ah, okay. So again, that's probably a label that someone else put on you because maybe it wasn't or isn't considered socially acceptable, right? But you want to be careful of owning someone else's label. You want to be careful of, you might be too emotional for them, but you may not be too emotional for yourself or too emotional to have an impact on the world. So you don't want to shut down your emotions because of what someone else said.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's beautiful that you take things to heart. It's awesome that you feel what other people, the world needs that. The world needs people who feel what other people feel, who understand what other people are going through, who understand it so much that they're willing to shed tears for them, that they're willing to be hurt by them. If we have more people like that on planet Earth, we wouldn't be in the mess that we are in. So I want you to be really, really careful of accepting other people's labels, right? And create your own. In fact, like I said before, surpass labels. Okay, it's the too emotional, too passionate people by others' definition that have changed the world. So I want you to be really careful of allowing yourself to be limited because of that. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right, everybody, we're about to go through an exercise. So Dipti brought something up, and we only have about 15 minutes left. So as we move through this, I might be moving a little fast. And what I'm about to take you through is, for some people, takes a lifetime, okay? For some people, it takes a long time to go through it. Or you have to keep going through it and going through it and going through it. The whole idea here is to eliminate labels, or to understand why you are allowing a label to govern your life. Many people don't know that they are living by someone else's labels, that they are living by someone else's rules. Oftentimes, we just think what we're going through is because of us, and often it's not, okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of a behavior, something you do that limits you, that holds you back, okay? And I want you to write it down, all right? Because you need to see it. You not only need to think it, you need to write this down, all right? Now, here are some examples. You might say, man, procrastination limits me. Procrastination meaning that I know I'm supposed to do something, but I hold off on doing it, right? That limits me. You might say, my anger limits me. I get fearful at times, and that limits me. All right, I want you to think of an activity, and it's got to be more. I just named a couple of emotions. It's got to be more than an emotion. It's got to be an activity that you engage in that limits you. I'll give you some more examples. You might say, I don't do well in relationships. I get to a certain point in relationships where I mess the relationships up. You might say, in class, I don't ask questions. I feel fear and I don't ask questions. Just think of something you do that limits you. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to write that down. Then I'm going to go on to the next thing. All right. So the first one is think of a behavior that limits you. I'll give you a couple of seconds. I'm going to go to the next one. All right. Some of you might be struggling a little bit. A lot of times we try to think of a really big thing, but oftentimes it can be, you know, a small thing. Like the young woman just said, you know, that sometimes she will get to a point, she may get to a point, she didn't actually say this, that she might be taking something too hard or getting too emotional about it. So maybe she just turns off her emotions in a certain situation. That might be a behavior that's limiting her. Now, once you write that behavior down, the next thing is what I call a trigger. A trigger is something that happens just before you engage in the behavior that limits you, okay? A trigger is something that happens just before you engage in the behavior that limits you. Now, this could be a feeling. This could be something someone does, or something someone says, or something you see. So right before you procrastinate, right before you break off a relationship, right before you say something to someone you shouldn't say, right before you turn off your emotions, what happens? What thought goes through your mind? What feeling do you have? That's the trigger. So write that down. Trisha, if you can hear me, I might go about 10 minutes over, if that's okay.
Jason's actually right on it.
Works for
Oh,
me.
okay. All right, thank you.
It works for everybody here, but if some of you have to leave because you have something scheduled, you know, by all means, it is okay. But Mason, I think it's great if you want to go 10 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. All right, everybody. So you've stated the behavior. You know what the trigger is right before it happens. Here's where it gets a little more difficult. There is something you believe about yourself or something you believe about the world around you that gives that trigger power. It gives that trigger power. So for instance, the young woman that spoke before said someone told her at a point she gets too emotional. And she actually believes that. So probably when emotion swells up within her, that becomes a trigger for her to engage in a behavior that limits her. So the behavior might be turning her emotion off. The trigger is when she feels the emotion getting to her, and the belief is, oh, you're too emotional. Someone made her believe that. Okay? So what is a belief that you have about yourself or the world around you that gives that trigger power? Write it down. All right, last but not least, definitely not least. In fact, this is the most, all right? There's an experience or a series of experiences that you went through that caused you to develop that belief. So sometimes we go through experiences that because they are so traumatic, or because maybe they're not traumatic, but because someone drills it into our mind so often, we actually believe something from that experience. And that experience causes us to believe something about ourselves or the world that's false. That belief creates a trigger, and that trigger influences a behavior that limits us. This is what I'm challenging all of you to do. All right, so Dipti, thank you for asking the question. You've identified a talent. You know what skills you can or want to develop from that talent. You've asked yourself, you know what? This is how I learn. This is how I think. This is how I can grow. So whatever skill I want to develop, as long as I know how I learn, how I think, and how I grow, I can accomplish whatever I want to accomplish. But I meet these obstacles and I can't get over them. I meet these barriers and I can't get through them. I keep procrastinating, or I keep becoming fearful and stopping my actions, or I keep breaking off relationships. Why is this behavior limiting me? Well, now is the point where you ask yourself, what happens right before I engage in this behavior? This is where you ask yourself, what is it that I believe about myself or the world around me? You ask yourself, what experience helped me develop that belief? Once you go back and you look at that experience and you realize, wait a minute, that experience I went through, that person was wrong. I'm not too emotional. Wait a minute, that experience I went through, I thought was my fault. That's not my fault, that's their fault. That experience I went through, that thing that I thought was true was actually a lie. Once you look at that experience and you realize that you interpreted it incorrectly and you developed a belief off of that, what happens is you'll look at that experience differently. Then what happens is that belief goes away. Then because that trigger has no power, the trigger doesn't work anymore and the behavior doesn't limit you. And you will accomplish whatever you want to accomplish in this world. And guess what? It's not just you by yourself. Empower Peace is teaching you to lead. And leadership does not include you. If you can take yourself through this process and you can encourage another person to go through this process, and they realize their purpose and they realize their talent and they realize all of the skills that they can develop, right? And then you are able to do that for a group of people. You can unite anybody around a cause to change your community, to change the world. Why? Because not only have you learned to go through this process, you've encouraged others to go through this process. So I know I've talked a lot. I want to thank all of you for joining today. It was wonderful to be with you. Before I go, I asked Trisha for 10 more minutes. Of that time, we have 8 left. So I just want to end if there's any questions or statements before we go.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you very much. Like, it was really encouraging, motivating, and it was really helpful, this session. So I just wanted to thank you at the end.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Anybody else? Yes, Arla?
I would love to.
Oh, go ahead, Lana.
Okay, thank you. So first, I'd like to thank you. Like the one before me said, it was extremely inspirational and extremely helpful too. So thank you for that. You talked about things that limit us. And personally, what limits me, in my opinion, is my procrastination. It's something that comes from within me. It's not something that other people have forced upon me. And I'm really good at ignoring other people's opinions and just doing what I believe in. But however, because procrastination comes from within me, I don't know how to change that. And I'm really struggling because of it. So do you have any advice towards that?
Yes, I do. And forgive me for speaking quickly, but usually with procrastination, it's one or two things. If someone gives me an assignment to do, if I view that thing as difficult, that assignment to do, right? Usually with procrastination, I'll find a reason not to do it because because inside me, I don't know if I'm up to the work or whether that work is important enough for me to do it. So oftentimes I will procrastinate. There's another side of it, of procrastination, is someone gives me something to do and I will say to myself, that is so easy. And I've got other things I've got to do. So I will push that off and do it at the last minute because I'm just that good. Usually those are the two principal reasons for procrastination, and it does start from inside. It's either too easy, so I'll put it off, or it's either too difficult, I perceive, and I want to wait. Usually what I ask people to do is when you are given something to do, don't only look at the what you are doing, look at the why. Why is this important to me? And usually if you can find the why, you'll realize that I've got to accomplish the what. And a lot of times it will eliminate procrastination, but it usually is a process. It usually takes time.
I have a small question. If I have like been under a label, or I have believed a label that someone gave it to me for like a long time, I really forgot what it's like to be myself or to not get influenced by this label. How, like, what is your advice so that I can remember what's, or like be my true self again and not care about this label?
So what I would challenge you to do is that process that we went through, you have to keep going through it. Because when someone gives you a label and you start living up to that label and you live up to it every day and you go through and you justify your success and your value, oftentimes you can forget who you were. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because you've been focused on that label so much. And it's a process, a daily process where you have to go back to who am I? Who do I want to be? And why am I giving this label power? If you ask yourself that enough times and you practice being who you want to be, and let me say this real quick, Trish, I'm gonna go as fast as I can. Let me say this really quick, right? A lot of times you have to practice being who you want to be even when it feels fake, when it feels like it's not real. Because you've been living by this label so much that that's what feels real, right? And who you want to be, it doesn't feel like you deserve it. It doesn't feel like you have the value to do it. It doesn't feel like you have the ability to do it. But you got to keep practicing it every day. And after a while, the label loses its power. And who you want to be gains all your power. Okay?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
All right, I think we have time for one more question.
Is it okay if you shared the resources, like any books or websites that you can check out to get deeper into the things that you shared with us today?
Yes, I can. And then I saw someone else's hand, and I'll make sure we come to, I think it's Yusuf. Did I say your name right?
It's a pretty good pronunciation.
Okay, I apologize. All right. Okay. So
just
let
wanted
me
to
answer
say,
Arwa's question, then I'll come to you.
Sure.
So Arwa, there's a book called I just named it Mindset by Carol Dweck, and I'll send this information to Tricia and Rick also. There's a book called Grit, Grit. There's a book by a man named Robert Greene. It's called Mastery, right? Those are 3 books about what I was talking about that I think would be a very good read for you. Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Got a question, you, sir?
not a question. I just wanted to say that we as women, we do face a lot of challenging. We do face a lot of challenges. So I just want everyone to know that we're really powerful. We know that we can't let anyone limit us. We don't have limits. We can do whatever we want because we know we can. And sorry, just a second. Sorry about that. Like, I just want everyone to know that we do have something to offer to this world and that we can do it. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, everyone, I want to thank you for just spending this time with me. Thank you, Rick and Tricia, Carrie. Thank you for inviting me to spend this time. And I just wish you all the best. I hope that I meet you in the future. And I turn it back over to Trisha.
Well, Mason, thank you so, so much. You know, I know we can't see all of you, but big round of applause for Mason because he is just fantastic. You know, I've had the honor of working with Mason for years now. And every time, Mason, I learn something new from you. So thank you. And I want to thank all of you. Your questions, your comments in the chat, the support giving to one another. It was awesome. I love this group. You guys are incredible. So today, yeah, so for you guys. So, today was a little bit about learning about yourselves, and I think we all got a lot out of that. Tomorrow, we have a phenomenal panel of women that are going to be talking with you about their leadership journey, their challenges. And this is your opportunity to really dive in deep and ask them all the questions. I see some questions here about, you know, fear of failure and fear of speaking out. Those are all very real things, and, you know, that affects everyone at different levels. So tomorrow's your chance to really talk to these established women about some of the things that you care about and learning a lot from them. The other piece for tomorrow that we're going to try is that we're going to start off in a Zoom webinar where we're, you know, they'll be talking as a panel, but then we're going to switch over to a Zoom meeting. It's almost like you're switching classes, and we're going to break out into groups. So you will be in a much smaller session with one of the speakers tomorrow so that you can get to know them a little bit better and some of the other people. I also saw in the chat that you're all very interested, or some of you are very interested in talking to each other. So we're going to go back and try to figure out how to make that happen, because I would love to connect you all. So that is it for today. Tonight, because it'll be your night, my day, because I'm in Boston, you will get another link for tomorrow's webinar. And be sure that you know that the first part is the webinar, the second part is the Zoom meeting, and we're going to walk you through this tomorrow so you don't have to worry about it, but just be on the lookout for it. If for some reason you don't get it, contact us, we'll send it again. All right, but thank you so much. I learned a lot from all of you, and you, Mason, are just always amazing. So thank you. Have a great evening. Mason, have a great day, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Bye
much.
bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Look forward
Bye.
to tomorrow.
Thank you.